to jail U.S. residents in a notorious foreign prison, no due process, or pointlessly leaving food assistance to rot in storage.
Senator Murray.
Thank you very much, Chair Graham. Senator Schatz, welcome to your new role. I look forward to working with both of you. Secretary Rubio, I am deeply concerned that you have overseen a systemic campaign to dismantle USAID, impound billions of dollars that this committee actually provided, and unilaterally remake the Department of State without the slightest bit of concern that you lack the authority to do that without Congress. It has created chaos, it's caused preventable deaths across the globe, and it has undermined American leadership. As Ranking Member Schatz noted, what you have done is outright illegal, a complete violation of bipartisan appropriation laws, the Impoundment Control Act, and the Anti-Deficiency Act. Within hours of taking office, President Trump halted all foreign aid in flagrant defiance of the law. Now, under your watch, Secretary Rubio, that freeze was implemented with chaos and cruelty. And then you illegally shuttered USAID, placing everyone on leave, halting life-saving work, literally locking people out of the building and out of their devices, even in dangerous corners of our world. You paid people not to work, abandoned our partners across the globe, and chaotically recalled global staff, putting more than 1,600 Americans who served our country abroad in limbo. And when you shut down the USAID payment system, you even refused to pay for services provided before the illegal freeze. You fought all the way to the Supreme Court, against paying for services U.S. businesses already rendered with funding that Congress already provided. And I know you know, Mr. Secretary, but you lost. And I assume you need the reminder because to this day, you have not made all the payments that are required by our nation's highest court, and as a result, American companies continue to lay off American workers. And by the way, you do continue to lose in court, including just yesterday over your move to illegally replace the U.S. Institute of Peace Leadership, and in recent cases over international broadcasting. Now, eventually, Mr. Secretary, you sent Congress notice of your intent to collapse the USAID into state. Only you didn't consult with this committee. That's required by law. It came without justification, also required by law, and it came long after USAID was reduced to rubble. So sadly, disregard for our laws and values, to me, has sort of become a pattern of your tenor, revoking visas when someone writes an op-ed you don't like, or reaching a secret deal to use taxpayer dollars to jail U.S. residents in a notorious foreign prison, no due process, or pointlessly leaving food assistance to rot in storage.
What we just saw between Senator Patty Murray and Secretary Marco Rubio is more than a tense Senate back and forth. It's a window into how fragile accountability can become when power goes unchecked. Murray isn't grandstanding here. She's sounding an alarm about something fundamental. Whether the United States still honors the balance between Congress and the executive branch that keeps our democracy alive. At its core, this exchange is about money, but not in the narrow sense of budgets or line items. It's about who controls the people's money and how that power can be abused. Murray accuses Rubio of freezing and redirecting billions of dollars in foreign aid without congressional approval, effectively ignoring the laws that dictate how those funds must be spent. In plain English, she's saying, you don't get to play king with taxpayer money. This matters because when Congress approves funding for humanitarian aid, global health programs, or alliances that protect U.S. interests, it's not just charity. It's strategy. It's leadership. Those funds often stand between famine and food, between a stable region and a failed state. Cutting them off without warning doesn't just cause paperwork delays, it endangers lives. Murray pointed to literal warehouses of high-energy biscuits rotting in Dubai because of bureaucratic paralysis. Imagine that, food bought with American dollars, meant for hungry children, wasting away because someone in Washington decided to pause aid for political reasons. That's not efficiency. That's negligence. Then there's the question of legality. Murray cites the Impoundment Control Act and the Anti-Deficiency Act. Laws that exist to stop presidents or cabinet members from unilaterally withholding money Congress already approved. These aren't technicalities, they're the legal backbone of fiscal accountability. When an administration disregards them, it sets a dangerous precedent, that the executive branch can simply rewrite the rules of democracy to suit its agenda.
Actually, in Dubai, we now have 500 tons of high-energy biscuits that expire in July. They're bought, they're shipped, they're stored, all at taxpayer expense. But you've condemned them to waste, and that is one example of many. Now, another pattern that I'm deeply worried about is transparency. We have pressed you for information. Our staffs have sent you countless emails and briefing requests so we can do our job here. There are hundreds of unanswered requests and no effort to address them. And Mr. Secretary, that's got to change. Even your plan to reorganize the State Department came with no information on the 270 offices you are moving to eliminate, the proposed layoffs, or how USAID would be merged into state. I won't ask you whether impounding billions of dollars is legal. It is not. I won't ask you whether it's efficient to pay people not to work or fire them without determining staffing needs. But, and I won't ask you if cutting 91% of our counter-narcotic and law enforcement programs make us safer, abruptly abandoning agreements with allies makes us stronger, or ceding our global leadership to China makes us more prosperous. Of course not. We know that. We have worked together for years in a bipartisan way to advance U.S. interests and fund those programs. So with respect to my colleagues, how long are we going to sit here and watch this silently? Are we going to roll over as Trump tramples our laws and undermines our U.S. leadership, burns down what we have spent decades building, and let millions of people across our globe suffer and die? Or are we going to stand up, push back, assert our constitutional power of the purse? And to my colleagues on both sides, this is the moment to decide whether this committee continues to be a powerful bipartisan force, a force that I think we've all been proud of for a very long time, a force that is focused on safety and economic strength and national security, focused on leading the world in research and development and countering China and others with our soft power and our military power. Every single member of this committee knows what we are risking by letting this administration tear down so much. On USAID and other programs, we can always talk about how we can make things work better and other reforms. I don't think any of us are opposed to any of those considerations. We have been doing that in a bipartisan way for a long time. But that's not actually what Trump's fiscal year 2026 budget proposes. Now, Mr. Secretary, I know you would like to give a 5-minute speech back to me, but I only have a few seconds left, and I do need some information from you. As I said, we have asked and have not gotten. Can you tell me, will you share the text and details with my staff of your agreement with El Salvador and any other similar arrangements, including the funding details that we need to have?
Well, first, I'd like to respond to your 7-minute speech, which is primarily, I disagree like 99% of it. It's just not true. We've done nothing that's illegal. We've been in over 600 briefings to Congress. We've asked questions. We've answered questions repeatedly. We get hundreds of questions a day. We respond them as quickly as possible. And your characterization of the moves that we made
Mr. Secretary, I would just tell you, we are here because we need the information so that we can write our budget and on a bipartisan.
Well, you'll have the information you need to write a budget.
Okay, so will we get the details on the El Salvador arrangement? Yes or no?
Well, which Salvador arrangement?
Your agreement that you've made with them about.
What agreement? The president of El Salvador agreed to take in 250 gangbangers, and we sent them.
Funding details we have not gotten. We need to see what the costs are.
Well, we haven't funded that. We've provided them law enforcement assistance. But I know you just claimed that we cut all this law enforcement assistance. We provided El Salvador and other countries law enforcement assistance. They have the right to spend that money any way they wish. But they did us a big favor. They took 250 dangerous trained out. We didn't deport any U.S. residents. No U.S. residents were reported.
I'm not going to argue with you on that
point. Well, it's not an argument, but don't say we deported U.S. residents, because we didn't. I don't deport anybody.
I'm not asking.
But we didn't deport U.S. residents.
I'm asking you whether we can see the details of the arrangements, including the funding details.
I'm giving you the details. The arrangements are we provide law enforcement funding to El Salvador, among other countries. How they choose to spend that money internally is up to them. But I can tell you.
Can you give me the details on the 200-plus offices you're proposing to
Sure, we've
eliminate?
provided that.
We need that. Can I get your commitment to give us those?
It's part of our reorg.
How about the details and justifications of your proposed rescissions from programs you claim are out of alignment with administration priorities? Are we going to get the details of that, funding priorities?
On rescissions and empowerment and things of this nature, that's obviously an OMB function, and I would talk to them about that in regard to what's going to go on with that money. I can tell you the contracts we canceled, and I can list to you the contracts we canceled and the rationale why, because I went through them myself.
Can you get those to us like today? So
the contracts?
Yes, and the funding arrangements that you've made. That's what I'm asking for.
Funding arrangements with who?
For any of the rescissions, for any of the funding, for any of the multiple congressional directives that you have given out, so that we as an appropriations committee can make our funding decisions.
Sure, you're going to have all that information when you put together a budget.
Thank you. I enjoyed that.
Rubio's response, that nothing illegal happened and that Congress will get the information, eventually, exposes a deeper problem, a culture of deflection. Eventually doesn't cut it when programs collapse, workers lose jobs, and allies lose faith in American promises. Transparency delayed is transparency denied. Murray's frustration here isn't partisan, it's institutional. She's defending the Senate's oversight role, The same one that's been eroded, step by step, by leaders who treat checks and balances as optional. And look at the pattern she highlights. Shuttering USAID, blocking congressional inquiries, striking secret agreements with foreign governments, even using taxpayer money in ways that lack public explanation. These aren't isolated missteps. They form a picture of governance that thrives in the dark. This is where Murray's message becomes universal. Her question, how long are we going to sit here and watch this silently? Isn't just for senators. It's for everyone who believes democracy is a spectator sport. Because silence is what allows erosion to continue unnoticed. Each time Congress lets an administration defy oversight, the line between democracy and executive overreach blurs just a little more. And while Rubio insists that his actions are within the law, Murray's point lands because she frames it morally, not just legally. She's saying, leadership isn't about getting away with it, it's about doing right by the people and the principles you swore to uphold. It's about being answerable, not just to a president but to the Constitution. So viewers should take away more than the heat of the argument. They should see the bigger lesson. Accountability isn't partisan, it's patriotic. A government that can freeze aid, hide documents, and dodge oversight without consequence can just as easily do the same with healthcare, education, or disaster relief. That's why Murray's stand matters. She's drawing a line, for democracy, for transparency, and for the millions of people whose lives depend on America keeping its word. This is the kind of exchange that tests the soul of government. Do we stand up for lawful, compassionate leadership, or do we normalize chaos wrapped in political spin? Murray's courage reminds us that democracy survives only when someone is brave enough to call power by its name, and demand it answer back. So as you reflect on this hearing, don't just see a partisan clash, see a fight for the integrity of governance itself. Ask yourself, if one branch of government stops respecting the other, who really loses? The answer always is the people. That's why this moment should stay with us, not as drama, but as a reminder that democracy's strongest weapon isn't force or fear. It's accountability. And that begins when we, the public, refuse to stay silent. If you believe transparency matters, if you believe laws should bind everyone equally, even the powerful, share this message, talk about it, and keep watching. Democracy only works when we all do. Would you like me to now adapt this same expanded script into a spoken-style voiceover version, more rhythmic, punchy, and emotional, ideal for YouTube narration?